When rescuers finally found him, only his legs were visible above the ground. The rest of his body was trapped underground inside a tunnel too small to turn around in. And according to investigators, he may have been alive down there for nearly 24 hours. The man trapped inside was 50-year-old Steven Walton, an experienced hunter who had entered the woods alone on New Year's Day. Enter carefully. This story doesn't end there. To understand how Steven ended up in that hole, you have to understand who Steven was. Not a reckless man. Not a thrill seeker. Not someone who took unnecessary risks. He was a father of two. A man of routine. Someone who hunted the same woods, walked the same paths, and returned to the same spots year after year. The area around Squirrelwood Scout Camp near Doncaster wasn't unfamiliar territory. It was practically his backyard. On New Year's Eve, he sat with family and mentioned he'd be out hunting the next morning, January 1st, New Year's Day. His family had arranged lunch for 1 p.m. Steven said he'd be back in time. Nobody worried. This was Steven. He always came back. He woke up early, gathered his ferrets, leashed his dog, packed his gear. The morning was cold, quiet, exactly how he liked it. Stepping outside, Steven's feet moved automatically, like a machine that had been running the same route for decades. The woods around Squirrelwood Scout Camp near Doncaster were known to him like the back of his hand. Every tree, every turn, every spot where rabbits appeared. This wasn't his first day in these woods. Not his first year. This was decades of familiarity, and that same familiarity had pulled him here again today. There was nothing unusual about the way that day began. No reason to pause. No reason to reconsider. And that completely normal feeling is exactly what made what happened next possible. At some point during those hours, Steven spotted a rabbit. He'd already caught one that day. But hunters don't stop at one. That was Steven's rule. Always had been. The rabbit moved fast, cut across open ground, and disappeared into a hole near the tree line at Squirrelwood. Steven crouched beside it, peered in. He could reach it. He just needed a little more room. He grabbed his spade, began digging at the edges, loosening the soil, widening the opening just enough. This wasn't a desperate move. It wasn't reckless. To Steven, this was just problem solving, the same kind of instinctive, practiced thinking he had applied to hunting situations dozens of times before. He had done things like this before. Reached into tight spaces. Used his body where tools couldn't go. That was part of the skill, part of the experience. In his mind, this was manageable. When he was satisfied, he set the spade aside, took off his jacket, removed his Wellington boots. Lighter, more freedom of movement. Small adjustments. The kind a man makes when he knows exactly what he's doing. And then Steven Walton lowered himself headfirst into the earth. The confidence that carried him to that hole, the same confidence built over 30 years of hunting, never once told him to stop. The hole narrowed beneath the surface, far tighter than it appeared from outside. At some point, Steven would have felt it. That first moment where forward stopped being an option. He tried to back out. He couldn't. His shoulders were locked in. The soil pressed from both sides with a force that didn't respond to effort, it responded to weight. His weight. Every small movement caused the earth around him to shift and compress further. The more he struggled, the tighter it became. His arms had almost no room to generate force. Bent at the elbows, pressed against the walls of the hole, they could push, but there was nothing to push against except more soil. Soil that gave a little, then settled back. Tighter than before. His legs were still above ground, visible to anyone who might have walked past. But from that angle, inverted, with no surface to brace against, they were useless. Kicking only exhausted him. And then there was the air. In a confined space, especially one angled downward, oxygen doesn't circulate. It settles. It thins. With every breath Steven took, the air around his face became slightly less of what he needed and slightly more of what he didn't. He would have known something was wrong with his breathing before he understood why. The scratch marks around the entrance told investigators how long he kept trying. Deep grooves in the soil. Disturbed earth on both sides. Evidence of repeated, sustained effort, not one or two attempts. A long, exhausting, An utterly hopeless fight. Steven didn't give up quickly. He fought methodically at first, trying different angles, shifting his weight, searching for any position that might give him even an inch of movement. Then harder. Then with everything he had. Investigators believe Steven survived for a significant amount of time after becoming stuck. Possibly the better part of a full day. Think about that for a moment. An entire day. Alone. Half underground. Darkness. Silence. Nothing but the sound of his own breathing, which grew slower and more labored as the hours passed. No one to hear him. His dog tied to the tree, his ferrets in their carriers. The woods of Squirrelwood completely empty around him. At some point, the body stopped listening to the mind. Exhaustion overtook effort. And everything went quiet. When 1 p.m. came and Steven didn't walk through the door, his family assumed he had lost track of time. The woods had a way of doing that. By 3 p.m., they tried calling. No answer. By evening, assumption had slowly turned into something else. Something heavier. This wasn't like Steven. This was the man who always showed up. Who always kept his word. Who never missed lunch without a reason. By the next morning, with still no word, they called the police. That call came in almost exactly when a walker reached the tree line at Squirrelwood. When his footsteps slowed on their own. When he looked down and understood that what he was seeing was real. Steven's dog had been tied to that tree for nearly 24 hours. Hadn't moved. Hadn't gone anywhere. Because Steven had left him there. And the dog had waited, the way he always waited whenever Steven went into the woods and came back. This time there was just one difference. Steven wasn't coming back. The coroner's report came. Cause of death, asphyxiation. Oxygen deprivation. Being trapped in a space where the air was either gone or close enough to gone that it didn't matter. Verdict, tragic accident. No foul play. No villain. No one to blame who might make it easier to understand. Just a man. A woods he knew better than anywhere on earth. 30 years of experience. And one moment of certainty, that this was manageable. That he could reach it. That this would go the way it always had. January 1st, New Year's Day. The morning that's supposed to mean a fresh start. Steven Walton walked into the woods at Squirrelwood Scout Camp the same way he had walked in for decades. With his ferrets. With his dog. With a lifetime of experience behind him. A rabbit ran. A hole appeared. A decision was made. And a dog, tied to a tree at the edge of those woods, stood there through the night. Through the morning. Until someone finally came and took him away. He didn't know when to stop waiting. Maybe because Steven had never once left without coming back.